We'd now like to call the Planning Commission meeting to order. And at this time, we'll stand for a moment of silent meditation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance that'll be led by Commissioner Lewis.
Please face the flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Joanne, will you please do the roll call?
Commissioner Becerra? Here. Commissioner Heng?
Here.
Commissioner Lewis?
Here.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Here.
Chair Williams?
Present.
Let the record show all planning commissioners are present.
So now we have before us the approval of the minutes from our meeting on May 28th, 2024. Do any of the commissioners have any corrections or amendments? Seeing none? Okay. Seeing no changes, then we'll recommend that the minutes be adopted. At this time, now we would allow for oral communications. We do have one card. We have a resident, Brian Calderon Tabatabai. Please come forward.
Commissioner Lewis, first off, thank you for all the work that you do. I am here to speak on the 5-Star Inn and the Pathway Home possible project. As many may know, the 5-Star Inn for a long time has had a troubled history in the city of West Covina, as residents have spoken out and have shared the fact that human exploitation had happened there for a very, very long time. And now, under new ownership, we are seeing the possibility of transformation for that facility. Over the last year, half of the 5-Star has been renovated, and now it looks like they are going to be contracting with LA County to take it from a space that had long been a space where there was prostitution, there was drug abuse, there was human trauma, and create a space of hope, a space of healing, a space of 24-hour security, space to bring people off the streets of West Covina and into a space where they're going to be able to get full services, mental health support, drug support, on-site job training, and eventually be moved into permanent housing. I felt it is important as a resident of West Covina to speak to this commission so you could understand what a transformation is about to occur in our community and why this is something that not only should the residents of West Covina support, but really goes to the values that we have as a city. And so I just wanted to come out here as a resident and to speak on this issue because I think it's important to speak on it in as many avenues as possible to make sure people understand not only the need, but why it will be a value added to us as a community because it fits our morals, it fits our ethics, it fits our priorities as a community, having to deal with this very real crisis. So we have an opportunity to take what had long been a stain. And again, I just want to acknowledge that new ownership at the 5-Star that has taken a facility that was a long-time stain on West Covina and has begun to transform it and make it into a place of healing and service to the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other cards or any other speakers? I see none. At this time, this would conclude our oral communications. Do we have any items on the consent calendar this evening?
We do not have any items this evening on the consent calendar, Chair.
Okay, so we'll be starting with public hearings. Our first public hearing item is tentative track map number 24-01. It's a tentative track map 74976. The location is 642 and 704 East Francisquito Avenue, and the applicant is Kevin Lam. Who will be giving the report this evening?
Chair, I will be giving the staff report this evening for this project.
Okay.
First and foremost, good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. This item was initially reviewed by the Planning Commission. It's for a subdivision of 2 lots into 6 lots. It was initially reviewed by the Planning Commission and approved on August 24, 2021. At that time, the Planning Commission reviewed and adopted a mitigated negative declaration for the subdivision. However, while the applicant was working on the building permits to demolish a portion of the existing house and to demolish and reconstruct a garage in order to comply with the conditions of approval, because a portion of the existing homes and the garage would cross the property lines. The entitlement for the tentative track map had expired and extensions were not requested. So the applicant had to resubmit in order to have the map submitted for plan check and a final map be taken to the City Council. So this item is going back to the Planning Commission for consideration. On the projector is this aerial photograph of the site. It is currently two separate lots in between on Francisquito Avenue, in between South Frandale Avenue and Craig Drive. The 2 lots are currently approved with existing homes. Again, the portion of the existing homes were demolished and remodeled in order to comply with the conditions of approval of the original tentative track map that was approved. And while that was taking place, the entitlement had expired. However, the permits for those particular improvements to the homes were finalized, and the construction has been completed and was completed in accordance to the mitigated negative declaration, that document that the Planning Commission had adopted and complied with the mitigation and monitoring program that was required within that particular document. On the projector is the proposed subdivision. All proposed lots within the subdivision would comply to development code standards in relation to the width, lot depth, and size of each of the lots. Lots 6 and 5 are the lots that are currently improved with the existing homes. while lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, when the map is recorded, it would be vacant. The applicant would be required to submit for other planning applications in order to develop the homes on those particular properties if the Planning Commission is to approve the tentative tract map today. And that is included in the conditions of approval. Building a home, single-story home, at the very least would require subcommittee design review, because any house built on a vacant lot would be visible from public right-of-way. So that automatically requires a design review subcommittee application. And depending on the size of the house and whether or not it's a two-story would determine whether or not it's going to require an administrative permit or potentially a higher level review. On the projector are the code standards as it relates to the existing site and development. The existing site with the two lots combined is approximately 1.87 acres, which is 81,495 square feet. The proposed lot area would be 10,560 square feet for lot 1, and then for 2, 3, and 4. I'm sorry, for 2 and 3, it's 9,460. And then 4, 9,680, and then 5 and 6 over 21,000 square feet. And based on the area, the minimum lot size in that particular area is 9,450 square feet. So all of those proposed lots exceeds the minimum standard. That is the same for the minimum width and depth, 70 feet width minimum and 110 feet deep. All lots comply with the minimum depth and width and are exceeding it. With this, staff, it is recommended that the Planning Commission approve tentative tract map number 24-01, which is the same tentative tract map number 74976, adopting resolution number 24-6148. And I would like to note that the applicant did submit a written statement that the environmental conditions on the site have not changed since the Planning Commission has approved or adopted the environmental document previously. Staff is available to answer any Planning Commission questions. The applicant is also present here in the council chamber.
Okay, thank you so much for the report. At this time, we're going to open the public hearing. I have one card. It is the applicant, Kevin Lamb. You're welcome to come forward.
Good evening, Planning Commission. I'm glad to see you today. I've been sick for the last 3 days, and because my kid want to go to Disneyland, so I went there with them. So I don't know, I got cold or something, but you know, everything coming out like a faucet. But this subdivision been a while. It takes like almost 10 years. And first we hire a lot of architects, we hire a lot of engineers to help us. But, you know, there was some problem, and, you know, they quit. Either they quit or they don't do the work. So finally I took over, and during 2021, I got the approval of and we were trying to do all the conditions that set forward in the approval, and we were working on that and didn't realize how long it take, and it took a while because there was so many problems and during the pandemic and all kind of things. So I'm here today to answer any of your questions if you have, and I hope that you will approve this again because we're trying to make the place a better place, because it's a big lot, and just to maintain that is quite a lot of work. So, trying to divide into a smaller lot, it would be easy for people and easy for people to move in West Covina and, live here.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Lamb?
I have sort of an overall procedural thing that I think the commission ought to address, and it just has to do. It's a procedural issue that I see with the application pertaining to the letter written by the applicant to Joanne Burns, affirming that the environmental conditions haven't changed in regard to the original mitigated negative declaration. The only problem with it is that my understanding is that we require a sworn affidavit, which is notarized. The issue is that this is just an affirmation. It doesn't contain the jurat language that's required for a sworn statement. So that we can just have a complete application. And Madam City Attorney, if you want to chime in here, I'm perfectly amenable to that. But I was going to suggest if we could just quickly potentially swear in the applicant so that he can affirm that this is all true under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of California. I think we can get past that and move on because it's a small thing, and I totally understand. Probably had no idea that it was even an issue, but I went through the application and I saw that.
I have a question.
Okay,
sure.
if you don't mind, Commissioner,
Go ahead.
so we can address this one item and go forward. Yes, to constitute an actual sworn affidavit, this requires you to swear under penalty of law, penalty of perjury, that you are telling the truth. And the Commission here is, instead of resubmitting, they are asking if you would be willing to take the oath now and swear that what is in here is actually true, and you are swearing under penalty of perjury. Would you be willing to take an oath as to that? Okay. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay. If the Commission is amenable, would you be okay with taking the verbal oath from the applicant that the letter and the contents thereof that were notarized but not sworn under penalty of perjury? If we could do that now verbally, would that satisfy this Commission?
Commissioners?
Well, I have a question before you continue, City Attorney. I had a question.
Yes.
Can I ask my question before she continues?
Yes.
Okay. Just so you could explain to the audience, what does affirm mean on a notary document?
Affirm means just to confirm. It doesn't actually say that it is telling the truth under the laws of the state of California, where you are required to tell the truth. And if there is a lie, then a criminal charge can be brought where it is falsely stated under penalty of perjury. So this is just to confirm the oath that he just took is the oath to tell the truth and confirm that everything that is in this document, if there is a lie, that there can be legal action if there is found to be deceit or fraud.
Sounds good. I'm actually a notary public, so I just wanted the public to know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I was going to say, Madam City Attorney, do you want me to just ask him the question, or do you want to do it? Okay, Mr. Lamb, if you wouldn't mind, do you affirm that all of the statements in the letter that you submitted, which is dated April 6, 2022, to Deputy Community Development Director Joanne Burns, which is signed by you, is true and accurate in its entirety?
Yes, I do.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You mean the letter that's dated April 6, 2024 or 2022 you mentioned?
Excuse me, I may have misstated that. I want to confirm. I apologize. It's been a long day. Let me restate that, Mr. Lamb, and I apologize. Mr. Lamb, do you affirm that that everything in your letter dated April 6, 2024, to Joanne Burns, Deputy Community Development Director, which is signed by you, Than Kevin Lamb, on that same date is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, April 6, 2024. Yes.
Thank you. That was my only question, and I appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. I don't see any more cards. Anyone wanting to speak in opposition? I see none. At this time, I'll take questions from any of the commissioners on this item.
Point of order, Madam Chair, are you closing the public hearing?
Yes, I'll close the public hearing.
Is there a reason why it took, and again, is there a reason why it expired or why it took 10 years?
The applicants they were working on the conditions of approval requiring the homes to be modified, a portion of it to be demolished and the garage to be reconstructed, and they did it. I guess they lost track of the timing, and so an extension was not requested. The city does not remind or send the applicants reminder on when their permits are going to be expiring. As far as entitlements are concerned, that is up to the applicant, and that is typically written in the conditions of approval or the approval letter that's provided to the applicant. So in this case, they oversaw. There was it was forgotten about.
I think I remember a little bit about this project that was approved about 2021 or so. I believed it was approved, and I think they have 2 years to finish some of the conditions and to do the extension. And they passed the 2 years, is that correct? Because August was the 2 years in 2023. That's why we are seeing this again.
That is correct. And also note that when the City Council recently approved the Development Code update. In the new Development Code, the expiration for tentative tract map is 3 years. However, this project has expired before that Development Code update took into effect. So they really had to reapply for this approval, since it was an expired project can't be extended.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other questions? Do we now, can I ask for a motion on this particular item? And do we need to do it separate, one for the mitigated neg deck and then for the resolution for the tentative tract map? Or can they be done together?
If this commission is relying on the same mitigated negative declaration from before, I believe with no changes, if the commission is satisfied with that, can wrap that into the motion. It doesn't have to be separate if you're relying on the same facts and the same everything. But if, for clarity of the record, if you should prefer to separate them out, you can.
So I'll make a motion to approve tentative track map number 24-01, parentheses TTM 74976, parentheses section 15162 SECRA exemption for applicant Kevin Lamb at the location at 642 and 704 East Francisquito Avenue.
I'll second that. And I think we're going through it very quickly was because 2 years ago it was approved already. And the fact that they forgot about it within a few months, that's why we're approving it very quickly. So I'll second that.
Okay, I have the motion to approve this, and it's been second. One ceremonial change in the resolution for the tentative track map. We wanted to have it amended so that it includes the original date when the matter was considered by this planning commission. That was August 24th, 2021, and this evening, June 25th, 2024. Okay, with that, may we have the roll call?
Commissioner Becerra,
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis,
Aye.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hang,
Aye.
Chair Williams.
Aye.
Let the motion show that resolution number 24-6148 has been approved 5-0.
Thanks. Okay. Now, at this time, we will be moving on to a non-hearing item. This item is a study session, Planning Commission Standing Rules. Our Community Development Director, Ms. Burns.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the study session is to discuss the adopted rules with the revisions recommended by the City Attorney's Office. That has been included in the staff report as attachment 1. The Planning Commission initially discussed this issue, this item at the last Planning Commission meeting and had continued this item for this study session to the next available meeting, which is today's date. At the last Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission clarified that the desired order of the agenda and how the meeting is ran would not follow the Robert's Rules of Order exactly, and it would be, which is up on the projector, the staff presentation first for public hearing. For public hearings, public hearing item is opened. The applicant speaks first. Those in favor, those against, a rebuttal, and the Planning Commission's questions to the applicant and staff, followed by the close of public hearing, commissioner discussion and deliberation, and a motion for a vote, where the Planning Commission does a roll call vote, which is different from the exact way that Robert's Rules of Order is handled. At the last Planning Commission meeting, when the study session was held, the Planning Commission provided also direction for the city attorney to provide some type of presentation or discuss certain issues related to meeting disruption in the chair's role. The city attorney is present, and she will be providing a verbal presentation on this. The Planning Commission also directed staff to provide a summary or provide a handout, an official handout in regards to Robert's Rules of Order, and that has been provided within the Planning Commission's packet. Staff provided two items, two reference items. One is the cheat sheet for Robert's Rules of Order that was obtained from or created by BoardFX, and the other handout is for the Robert's Rules of Order Simplified that was prepared by Cornell University. With this, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the Deputy City Attorney. She will be discussing the chair role and also the meeting disruptions.
Good evening, Chair, Planning Commission. Now that we are in this post-COVID era, I think a lot of us are familiar with video streaming and interactive platforms for these meetings. And one of the specific sections within the Brown Act, specifically addressing teleconferencing, is if there's a disruption in broadcasting, the ability of the public gets cut off to interact with the commission and provide feedback and comment. So one of the rules in the Brown Act is that if there is a disruption that prevents the legislative body from broadcasting the meeting to the members of the public using the call-in option or an internet-based service option, or in the event of a disruption within the local agency's control that prevents members of the public from offering public comment, using the call-in option or the internet-based service option, the legislative body shall take no further action on those items appearing on the agenda until the public access to the meeting via call-in or internet-based service is restored. Any actions on the agenda that are taken, any votes that are taken during the disruption, and it could also be deliberations, which is also part of it, but especially a vote. If that happens during a disruption of broadcasting, the Brown Act says that may be challenged. So we are monitoring, we have someone on staff to keep us online, and if we happen to have a disruption, they would let the chair know, and in that case, we would pause the proceedings to make sure that we can restore, if it is something within city control, to restore that connection so the public can offer comment and interact and provide feedback on an item before it is voted upon. So that we would take a recess at that point. If there is a broadcasting disruption, take a pause, see if it's something that can be restored. If not, what we would do is adjourn or recess until it is restored. And if it cannot be, it's a bigger problem and it cannot be restored, at that point, we would continue the meeting to another set date, certain time, if possible. So what this encourages is the public's ability to provide feedback as if they were here. So that's one of the Brown Act requirements regarding disruptions in broadcasting. Now, there are other disruptions, and those would be physical disruptions. Let's say, for example, there's an emergency, there's a fire in the building, or if there's an earthquake and we are unable to continue, it would be incumbent on the chair to recognize that there's an emergency going on, or a medical emergency or something, to call that recess until the situation can be assessed and determine whether it can proceed after a recess or if it cannot. If it cannot, then again, we would have the meeting continued to another date and time so that the public can get notice of the date and time of the continued meeting, and then the business would be conducted at that meeting. So that's another physical disruption. Another type of disruption is willful disruptions. Give me 1 second. Okay, willful disturbances or breaking up of a lawful assembly, which this would be a lawful gathering of the commission to conduct official business. There are a couple of things that the chair, as presider of the meetings, would be on watch for, and that would be to see if there is a disruption to the level where the meeting and the business of this commission cannot go forward. If it cannot continue, at that point, you do have a disruption of the meeting, and you can call for a recess. And if it's just a matter of everyone needing to calm down, or if it's a temporary thing, a recess would probably be sufficient. You can re-adjourn after the recess and commence the meeting again. And if the disruption occurs again, if it happens to be a specific individual who is willfully disrupting the meeting, making it impossible to continue the business of this body, then at that point, the person can be asked to be removed by the officer here. If there happens to be a crime committed, such as a disruption of the peace, a disturbance of the peace, or under Penal Code Section 403, which is someone who willfully disturbs or breaks up a lawful assembly or meeting, unless the person has a legal authority to do so, is deemed to have committed a misdemeanor under the statute. So that is one way that someone who is actually preventing a lawful assembly here can be removed, and they would be cited for Penal Code 403 for disrupting a meeting. There are other sections that could apply depending on the situation, obviously, and our officers are well versed in what other disturbances of the peace there might be. But that is one way that a disturbance may be stopped, and then the meeting can be continued. Of course, if need be, the recess can be taken to see if it needs to go that far. And that's up to the chair to kind of keep an eye on that and see what the situation is as it evolves. If ever there is a need to consult with counsel or with law enforcement, a recess would be proper for that. If there is a direct and immediate threat, you can call a recess immediately to preserve the security and safety of everyone in the immediate. So at that point, you can call an immediate recess if need be. While many boards, commissions, school boards, et cetera, have had rules of conduct and civility and decorum type rules, insofar as the First Amendment is such a protected right, to the extent that members of the public wish to speak and come up to offer public comment, if they are not preventing the meeting from continuing at that point, it is not deemed a disruption sufficient enough to stop the meeting. If they have the floor and they have the public comment time allotted to them, they get that time so long as it's not personal threats, inciting violence, not causing a riot, not harassing individuals on the commission or staff. At that point, they have a right to speak under the First Amendment, and insofar as it's not falling into those specific categories or causing a disruption where the meeting cannot continue, they are given those 5 minutes, and once they're done, if they do not yield the podium and prevent the body from continuing at that point, I think you do have a disruption, and at that point, the chair can call a recess and call for order. To the extent that unpleasant language is used, the speakers generally have a First Amendment protected right to use language so as long as they don't cross that line again into harassment, inciting violence, threatening individuals, or causing anarchy, immediate uprising, those kinds of things. If it doesn't cross that line, they do have that First Amendment right to speak, and we treat that very, very seriously. So again, if there is ever a need where it crosses that line, perhaps a recess is in order, and to make sure that everyone can calm down. And if that does not resolve, then we can see what the next steps are. But just usage of expletives during a public comment may not necessarily fall outside of that First Amendment protection. And most of the decorum type rules of meetings where people have been physically removed or cut off from public comment have ended up in litigation that does not fare well for the government entities. So to the extent that that First Amendment protection is very powerful, we want to be very cognizant of that. So again, this does not contemplate every single type of potential disruption. So, and again, as presider of the meeting, the chair would have that discretion to say when a recess is needed or if there is an emergency to be able to call that recess. So that is within the authority of the chair. And if you have any other questions as far as, disruptions in broadcasting, disruptions in meeting proceedings, I'm happy to answer any further questions you might have. It's just one component of the rules that you're reviewing tonight.
Right, so anyone can say anything they want. I'm sorry, am I allowed to talk or are you still talking?
Oh,
okay. So anyone can say anything they want as long as they have their 5 minutes up there, and it doesn't matter who it is.
it doesn't matter who is speaking. The person delivering the comment does not matter. They can say whatever they want within certain limits. Again, they cannot personally threaten harm to a particular commissioner or to staff. They cannot harass individual members of the commission or staff. They cannot harass other members in the audience. It would have to be matters pertaining to the public business. So whether they get very passionate and certain words are used, as long as it is not threatening, it is not harassing, it's not attacking someone, it's not causing an immediate call for violence or riot, that is still protected speech under the First Amendment.
Right. So to my surprise, when I was chair, the first time I came across one of the gentlemen who comes in here often, the language, I was pretty shocked that this is something that is normal and we are to accept it. The willful disruption, to me, that's right there at the top of the list right there. Everything, they were directed at. I've seen them directed at almost every one of us, and I mean to where they tell us the F word directly to us or talk about our ethnicity. I think those are attacks on us. And I mean, that's just how I feel. I just don't think that they should be accepted as such as just the First Amendment.
I think at that point, the speaker can be reminded that we would want to maintain decorum and maintain civility. But again, it is still within that First Amendment protected speech zone. It hasn't crossed over. If it hasn't been a direct threat of, I know where you live, I'm going to come after you, or I know what you drive, those rise to a different level of threat versus using unpleasant, racially charged or discriminatory language. While we don't like it, we don't prefer to use that. We prefer not to hear it here. It is still protected speech under the First Amendment.
Can you clarify what the mute button is here? If someone's using profanity, what's the mute button used for at council meetings?
I cannot speak to that. I'm not aware of.
So can you mute the speaker if they're cussing out?
No.
If someone's using profanity on that mic live, you can't. They could continue to speak to this body and everyone in this house, but you could mute them from. You can mute that mic that's being live feeded.
The First Amendment protects their ability to speak, even if they are using unpleasant words. So using the F word, unfortunately, is not cause to cut off public comment.
So I'm gonna encourage. You don't have to get back to me today, but encourage you to reach out to the city attorney town authority and get clarification on that, because at the council level, they do it very often. And I believe the city attorney has taken a different stance on that issue. Just at the last council meeting on June 18th, the mayor muted profanity from that mic. So we probably need clarification on that.
I will look into it.
I have a follow-up question. I as an attorney myself, I look at the issues on, I look at some of the statements that were made with regard to what is permissible versus impermissible speech, and particularly in the context of what is actually still an open question of law as to how expansive the legislative privilege is. Because when you stand before this dais, you have some semblance of legislative privilege, and conceivably, you have the ability to say whatever you want. And no one has actually made any rule. The Supreme Court has not made any ruling as to whether or not a threat of violence in that context is even a crime. We don't have case law on that. And so that's one of the reasons why when the city attorney states that harassment would be grounds for potentially, cutting someone off, I'm very concerned about having that kind of vague language. And the reason I say that is because I don't know what harassment means, and I think harassment means different things to all five of us up here. Vague language means implicitly, and I know, Madam City Attorney, you know this. If it's a constitutionally vague statute, it's being struck down. If it involves the First Amendment, and so my biggest concern is, as much as I understand you're making a presentation for us. My concern is that certain words mean certain things to you and I that might be a lot different to a lay person who doesn't understand the legal nuances, because trust me, First Amendment law it can take years to really learn the nuances of that, because there are so many different subcategories that you have to concern yourself with. And so that's one of the reasons why direct threats or direct incitement is certainly something that I think we all ought to be mindful of. And I mean, direct call for violence. It can't be vague. That's the other thing. And so, even if somebody says something that we don't like, that we think could cause somebody to stir themselves up and do something harmful, that's not crossing the line. And that's what we have to be very careful of, because these words have legal significance. And I'm very protective of anyone's right to speak up here. And I will tell you if I think you're wrong, every single one of you, because I think it's concerning that, unfortunately, the average person doesn't necessarily have all of the background legal knowledge for all of this. And I think it's unfortunate. I think it's one of those things where I just encourage everyone to be as educated as possible on the First Amendment, because it is a right that I think everyone up here really ought to take the time to fully understand and fully appreciate those rights. Because, again, when we have a society where people think that things could, or where people start valuing things like this less, you can have sort of a backward slope. And that'd be very dangerous for our society, and that would be my only concern. Like I said, somebody coming up here cussing us all out, is that all that helpful to moving forward on some ordinance or some project that we're considering? The answer is no. But I still think that at the end of the day, protecting First Amendment rights and people's ability to say whatever crazy thing that they might want to say is our responsibility to some degree. And so that's my only sort of 2-second soapbox thing. And like I said, I understand where the city attorney's coming from, but I really want to impress that I think it's our job to be more permissible rather than less. And I want to sort of leave off with one comment that Commissioner Gutierrez said. I think the only reason there's a mute button there is so that when somebody is done with their 5 minutes or whatever the allotted time is,
we can cut them off at that point in time. That is a valid time, place, and manner restriction that we have the right to impose, because at that point in time, that person, they're cut off. They get 5 minutes in front of us. That's their time to redress their grievances with the government. And we should be very mindful of that. That's the only reason that mute button exists. It doesn't exist for any other reason as far as I'm concerned.
Well, if you can also ask the city attorney, because I know that I have heard the city council at various times to say, please keep your language respectful. I mean, they don't stop them. They'll just make a comment to them, and I don't know what, how far we've just, this whole system has gone where First Amendment now allows you to make a mockery of a government meeting. It's very disappointing.
Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot more of that, but at the same time, the ability of the public to voice, passionate as it might be, voice their disconcerns or their dissatisfaction with their local government is probably one of the most protected forms of speech out there. And most of the cases that actually go to litigation, the agencies often lose. And that is one of the concerns of airing unless it is clearly...
Right, I understand that. But even on television, they'll beep you out. Beep, beep, beep. We allow them, because I went home later that night and I wanted to see if it had been deleted. No, the whole thing was there for everyone to hear, every bad word, every filthy word, and it was all there.
And the public has a right to hear it as well. So that is the ability of the public speaker to speak, whether they're unsatisfied or dissatisfied with the local government. It is their protected right to speak out those dissatisfactions.
I
And
get
for
it.
the members of the
On
public.
I'll say that,
television, they don't allow it, but we do.
Yeah, so I would say we need to reach out to the city attorney because he absolutely has a different belief on that. So I think we're overstepping on boundaries. If the city attorney's made a recommendation on this issue, we should be following the recommendation of the city attorney, because he is the one selected by the city council and hired by the majority of the city council to make those legal decisions.
And I will look into that, but to the extent that the expression of dissatisfaction with local government is one of the highest protections that are out there for free speech. And again, one of the differences with publicly televised meetings versus ours here is that the FCC governs the publicly broadcasted TV broadcasts versus our meetings here. They are different. So with that, the federal rules do apply, and they are a little bit different from what we have. So that is another factor that plays into this.
I just want to add that for the 9 years I think I've been here, first, there are not that many publics that actually attend our meetings. And if we do get them, I think out of the 9 years I've been here, I've only heard maybe one or two. And then also at the same time, as commissioners, we have a responsibility in a job, basically a volunteer job, which takes a lot of time and effort to make decisions that ultimately affect the entire city. And to do that, we also have to listen to everyone, whether it's from the applicants, whether it's from who are in favors, anyone who are not in favors, in all the languages that they come. Thank goodness that they don't speak a different type of language that I wouldn't understand. But, for the most part, when we take all that, and then with the planning commissions, we have a discussions, and based on that, and then also with your own input and your own experience, and to come up with a solution. And sometime during that period, we may hear things that we're not going to like, but I kind of have to filter all that and then try to grab anything that is useful. So for those who comes up here and, you want to mute them or you don't want to hear them, they do have their 5 minutes. I think it might be a waste of my time, but I still have to listen to them so that I can make an informed or not include their, whatever it is that they're telling us. But at the end of the day, we all do have to listen. Everyone, and also our commissioner too. We have to listen to, what's being debated upon, and you will learn a great deal. Maybe that one person or that two person, we're not going to learn from it, and just mute them out yourself. But at the same time, if the audience or the residents or applicants, if they are here, they can actually, for themselves, actually listen to it and make a judgment call for themselves as well. So if they're not here sitting in the audience, then obviously they have to listen to us in the, YouTube broadcast? I don't know. I only saw it on YouTube. I don't know where else it's being broadcast. But so with all that, and it's a lot of decisions sometimes. I mean, there are documents that we had to read through, decisions, all that we have to gather together and make a decisions that may or may not affect the entire city. So it takes a lot, and there will be those one or two. It's disappointing. Everyone should know that it's disappointing in the sense that this is a volunteer, it's an appointed, but also mainly volunteer times for us as well. And do we want to be here and get yelled at? No. But do we want to be here and listen to everyone and make sure that we have all the information and filter out those that are not useful to us? Yes, we do have to do that. And sometimes it's long. It go over 10, 11 o'clock on certain topics. But hopefully, they know who they are. The one that always, not always, so knock on wood that they don't come that often. So that's my 2 cents since I've been here this.
I just wondered, did all those words go in the minutes as well?
I believe this commission's minutes are action minutes versus
yes, not
verbatim. So it's action minutes.
True. No, I appreciate the deputy city attorney coming to speak to us about at least making clear to the public that we do want to hear what they have to say. But at the same time, we would appreciate decorum and stability because we're here to try to improve everyone's life here in the city. And so I understand what she was explaining to us and having us be mindful of the First Amendment.
I think we all understand.
That's good, that we all support the First Amendment. And then Assistant City Attorney, will you get us an answer from the City Attorney at the next meeting?
Sure. To the extent that it is not violative of attorney-client privilege, I certainly will be able to expound on that.
Well, we just told the public that we won't mute them, but then the City Attorney gave a different opinion. So I don't think it's attorney-client privilege. I think it's a public record. But
I'm just not aware of what was done before.
Oh, okay.
Me,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Before me getting here.
Yeah.
Did any of the commissioners have any other questions, or did you have a chance to look at some of the changes that are being recommended in our rules?
Yeah, I have a question for that. I was going to say under the enforcement of decorum section, I was I was thinking of if the commission's okay with it, adding a section F to that section that will indicate that a majority body can overrule the chairperson's decision if warranted. And the reason I'll say to add it, obviously, it's not affecting our current chair at all. It's just for the future years to come. It's just to, I guess, give the commission the ability that, let's just say from years to come, we have a chairperson who wants to, let's just say, silence free speech or get someone kicked out right away without following these rules or whatever the matter may be. that there could be the majority body of the commission, 3 votes, and majority, a 3-vote body, can overrule the chairperson's decision if warranted to get someone kicked out of the chamber or possible arrested by the sergeant of arms.
But if it comes to that point, wouldn't the chair ask the city attorneys to see what's the best advice for whether it's, if they're violating the freedom of speech or
putting
we're not attorneys, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I'm just giving examples of different cases. But what I'm saying is specifically that there's different outlines on this description of actions that should be taken for enforcement of decorum. Now, if the majority body determines that they don't agree with that, and it could be, I don't know what the future holds, but if they don't agree with that, then they do have the ability as an appointed member of this commission to say, wait a minute, that's not right. I want to overrule the chairperson's decision on getting that person kicked out.
I was going to say, Commissioner Gutierrez, if you would clarify on this, I just want to make sure I'm clear on what you're asking. So under Section 7 on rules of debate, it states in the second paragraph, it says, unless otherwise specified herein, the commission will adhere to, and all questions of parliamentary procedure shall be resolved by the Roberts Rules of Order, current edition for meeting procedure. And then we go to attachment 2, and we go to the bottom of the first page. There is already a motion to overrule the chair's ruling in the Roberts Rules. Are you proposing that we codify that particular motion, or?
You know what? Even better. Yeah. Well, thank you, Commissioner Lewis. I think better yet, if we could somehow reference that ability into what I'm saying. So, in accordance to Robert Rules of Orders, a motion to overrule the chair's ruling can occur. I guess it's just putting it in writing, because we all know this, but in years to come, the future commission may not have this document.
Well, the future commissioner also needs to learn about the Robert Rules of Order.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
if it is here already, and I don't necessarily think we needed to be in there.
We have to answer.
I would be. I think it's sort of a double-edged sword. It's kind of one of those things where it's like it's positive in the sense that it's express, but at the same time, I can see an argument on the other side of that well, if people just inherently rely upon the rules of decorum, they're never going to spend the time learning the Roberts Rules. Whoever succeeds us in the future, that would be my only concern, sort of as a counter to that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to make it more simplified, we can even put, maybe the assistant city attorney can help, but despite these rules, is there some way to put some sort of language that says these rules are in accordance with the Robert Rules of Orders? I think it's already said somewhere, but
Yeah, at the beginning.
Yeah.
so we're not. Just want to clarify, we're not broadening. We're not making it more. There's nowhere in this language that will prevent someone from making that motion in the future.
Correct. It's already embedded with the Roberts Rules of Order. There's a process in there for appealing or overruling the chair. So by picking and choosing what you do want to put into your decorum, it kind of gives a conflicting message of what you want to include and what you don't want to include. So to the extent that the Roberts Rules of Orders are the default, what this commission would like to change from the Roberts Rules of Order are the specific items that are recommended to be included in your Rules of Order, so that you can highlight what is different from the Rules of Order, Roberts Rules of Order, versus reiterating portions that are already provided for.
Can I make a suggestion that I think would be somewhat helpful? perhaps instead of codifying this, we sort of incorporate by reference this attachment 2 that was given to us, and we state, this is the most recent kind of like, when they said the order of the chairperson that's deleted in section 2, we're just saying, well, this is a cheat sheet that was in existence in 2024 when we all agreed to this. However, it can be modified and amended as time goes on based upon whatever new rules come about. I mean, I think that might be somewhat helpful, and it would ensure that at a very basic level, a commissioner who is given these rules of decorum upon appointment gets at least a small little taste of a crash course into Robert's rules, even if and let's pretend hypothetically somebody's appointed next week to take over for one of us, hypothetically, you want to make sure that whoever it is has the ability to pick up and run with it. I think that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, that's a smart idea. Yeah, we should somehow, somewhere on this, maybe add it as maybe item number 23, that all new commissioners should receive a copy of the Robert Rules of Orders cheat sheet.
As may be amended from time to time.
Yeah,
Something
that's
like
smart.
that.
Yep, that's good.
So Commissioner Lewis, if I have your suggestion correct, it is under paragraph 7 that you would like to include a reference to the cheat sheets, or the quick reference, call it a quick reference, and include the quick reference to the rules of this body, the Planning Commission rules, and reference that specifically in the rules, paragraph 7, to say, hey, refer to this.
And we can incorporate it by reference or something like that. However, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll add on to it, if possible, that any new commissioner should get a copy of a cheat sheet like this.
Now, reading this, I don't see that there's any, difference of how we are already conducting the hearings or meetings. So can you expand on what are the big differences that we'll be seeing in these rules?
It is up to this commission, of course, to adopt and specifically carve out things. But under Robert's rules, it requires a motion to begin an item. And it was expressed at the prior study session that this body would prefer not to require a motion to bring an issue to the table to begin that, item presentation and the questions and the discussion and the vote, that you would like to take it out of order or rely on the chair to move the item and move the particular issue to the next item for discussion. So again, in Robert's rules, the default is there must be a motion to talk about anything. So you have to have that motion out there to even start talking or get a presentation or ask questions or discuss it. So that's the default. And if you as the body would like to change that and say, instead of, rather than having the motion up front to bring an item to the table, that the chair may raise the next item for discussion and the chair may guide the order of discussion and open discussion on an item without a motion.
Right, and I think it's sort of tradition for this body anyway, so it's sort of like we have our own common law application of all of this. As sort of silly as that might sound, we have a history of moving forward on agenda items without calling a motion. I think every single commission up to and including the city council follows that. So
is that a motion, Commissioner Lewis?
I think it might be. I don't know.
I would second it.
Just because this is a study session, I think staff would appreciate it if you do have specific items that you would like to get in there and to make sure that we don't miss anything as this draft rules evolve and as they continue in the discussion, that you would submit them to staff in writing, the specific ones that you had pointed out today, but also in perhaps you might have some wording that you might want in there specifically, and staff would have an easier time tracking and making sure that each of them are incorporated on the next draft that is discussed. If it does come up for an action item, today is a study session, so I would say hold your motions till next time.
So perhaps, and Madam City Attorney, if this is at all possible, would it make sense? And I don't know if you want this hypothetically directly from me, with regard to the add-on of the sort of incorporation by reference of attachment to this item. If you want that directly from me in writing, or if you're comfortable doing that on your own.
The preference is if you have specific language you would like, please present them to staff so that they can all be included. So each commissioner, every concern that you have as far as the edits that you would like to see are documented, they're submitted, and we can incorporate it and make sure we don't miss any also.
Okay.
Yes.
I think for the one we were both speaking about, I think Joanne or staff took that down already, right? You guys wrote it down already?
We took notes on it, but if, again, as a deputy city attorney stated, if you want specific language,
Nick, you're my lawyer. Can you write it up?
then we would appreciate it if we were provided the specific language that the commission would like in writing. But we did take notes on it, and we intend on incorporating that into number 7 or paragraph 7.
I also want to add that in the past, the commission's the turnover was not that quick. I guess they've been around for so long that they kind of got used to, what was done in the past. But I think the sessions for the past sessions, we have literally brand new commissioners, and even myself, I can consider new as well. So, and I've been here maybe one of the longest, but the cheat sheets would probably help in the future if the commission keep rotating pretty fast. So this way it helps, bring them up to speed a lot faster. And also, I want to add that the city's leak, it's very helpful as well. It's out there once or twice a year. There's a meeting out there that is a 3 days meeting that actually help the new commissioners. When I first joined, I was able to go the first time, but then after that, we were not able to go because there's no budget. But recently, we do have a budget for new commissioners or old commissioners to attend those meetings, and I think they can be very helpful as well. And hopefully, staff can go too right now.
So do we need to continue it to a date certain?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to continue the discussion for the next meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So it's been properly moved. Second. We have a roll call.
Commissioner Becerra?
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis?
Aye.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Heng?
Aye.
Chair Williams?
Aye.
Let the motion show 5-0 to continue to the next Planning Commission meeting.
Okay. At this time, commission reports, comments, or miscellaneous items. Do any of the commissioners have anything?
Yes. Yeah, I would like to ask the commission to agendize, to ask for a request for review of conditions of approval and possible revocation of CUP for 5 Star Inn, located in the city of West Covina. On the June 18th council meeting, the mayor explained that there was exploitation going on, prostitution, drugs, overdoses occurring on this property. And specifically, it was indicated that we don't know who is at this property. So in addition to this request, I am also requesting a record of service calls be provided to this commission to determine if violations of the CUP occurred.
Wait, is this 5-star thing it hasn't come to us yet?
No, it hasn't. Question, there's going to be a public discussion on this before the City Council on July 2nd, which I think all the public are invited to attend.
So at the last council meeting, Mayor Pro Tem Tony Wu asked the city to also investigate the closing down this motel, and and that decision was supported by Councilwoman Diaz, Councilwoman Letty Lopez Villado, and Councilmember Oli Cantos. And so with that thing being said, it is this commission's responsibility, I was told, that we are to review conditions of approval, and if drugs and violent crimes are occurring on this property, then it is our responsibility, I've been told, that we need to take it up and find out what's going on at this property. So that's why I'm making that item agendized.
Yeah, it might be prudent if each of the commissioners themselves, as residents, have an opportunity to come to the council meeting on July 2nd. I understand that Los Angeles County will be providing information to our residents as well as council people and those who may have some concerns.
Yeah, and I'll say that by agendizing this item, the public will have the opportunity to come speak to this commission. And most importantly, if we're having people die there, overdoses, if we're having people doing prostitution there, if we're having people exploited, exploitation is a very horrible crime, it's a federal violation of crime. And if that's going on, we need to hear what's going on. We need the calls of service records to find out if the same issue is occurring, just like at the restaurant last time. We didn't find out. Now we've been told something is going on. And now it's our responsibility to lead that effort to figure out what is going on and what is the calls of service, so we can, as a commission, investigate that as our job, as it's one of our responsibilities to investigate that if there is exploitation of going on, prostitution, drug use, and all that matters. Well, we'll find out from our police department, because it's putting a burden on our police and the men and women of our police department who have to respond to those calls. And if that's occurring, we have to have. I'm not mentioning anything about the program that wants to go over there. I'm mentioning that we've been told that a location is committing crimes that are violating their conditional use permit, and that we need to take it up and review what is happening at that location.
Has someone submitted a public records request or a letter to the city clerk's office alleging this?
It was actually at the June 18, 2024 council meeting. Mayor Brian Tabatabai specifically stated that there was exploitation, prostitution, overdoses, and I quote, "We don't know who is at this property." So based upon the mayor's comment, as the mayor of the city of West Covina, I am calling that I'm now taking the responsibility as the commission, as on the planning commission side, that we've been told now that there's major crimes occurring on this property, and now we need to find out what's going on, because we cannot allow a restaurant. Earlier this year, the commission had to make decisions on a restaurant that was committing major crimes and violating their CUP. Now we've been told that this is occurring again, and now we need to find out what is occurring. And if the police department comes back and says, no, there's no exploitation going on, there's no prostitution, there's no overdoses occurring, no, they're following their conditional use permit, then we have nothing to worry about. But we need to find out what is happening, and I think that's important. I think that's one of our responsibilities, is to find out if those terms are being violated, because we have been told that they are, and I think we need to take that very seriously.
But even if we schedule something, isn't July 2nd, there's something going on with the city council?
Correct, it's next.
So that is in regards to a specific program that I'm not referring to. That is a pathway homes program, LA County Measure H program that the mayor serves on the Measure H board that he hasn't told the public about, but he serves on that. But on a separate note, but that's a separate matter. That's dealing with a different program. I'm talking about a motel operation, and only the motel operation. I'm not referring to a matter of the homeless issue. I am referring to being told that there's exploitation, prostitution, overdoses occurring, and drug sales occurring on this property.
I guess the question is, if they have a conditional use permit, I thought if a use under a conditional use permit, sunset, where say they don't continue, they don't have a business license or so forth, that after 6 months, the conditional use permit goes away. So now my question is, are you asking staff to find out whether or not there is a violation use permit still for that property?
So there is a conditional use permit for that property, if I'm not mistaken. And what I'm asking for is for the review of the conditions of approval, for possible violations and possible revocation of their CUP if it is found that they are allowing major crimes to occur on their property based upon testimony from city staff and testimony we'll hear from possibly the police department on calls of service.
Having grown up here, it's been a problem for a long time, a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
The residents are aware of it. Everyone's aware of it.
Yeah.
And why it hasn't come to the commission prior to this state is beyond me.
Yeah. And I think at the last meeting, and last council meeting, we heard a lot from the public. They heard a lot from the public about those, what visually the public is seeing. And then now we're hearing from the mayor, and now we're hearing from city staff saying the same thing. And so now as a planning commission level, we have to take that responsibility and say, wait a minute, if that's occurring, we can't allow that to continue to happen.
Again, I want to kind of understand. Are you asking staff, one, to find out if the property that you're speaking of, the 5-Star Inn, if it actually still has a legitimate conditional use permit? Because I don't know that it may have closed or what might be the situation of the business license.
Yeah, so
anything else?
Yeah, so I did my homework, and I asked city staff if there was an active conditional use permit on that location, and I was told that there is. So so now I'm bringing this to the attention of the commission to get consensus, a majority consensus to bring this as an agenda item. And I believe the city staff told me that there is a legal requirement on giving notice to the property owner. And maybe, is it appropriate for city staff to answer that right now or no? Assistant City Attorney?
There would be notice provisions, and if you're requesting that it be put on the very next meeting and it does not satisfy notice requirements, that would not be a possibility.
Yeah.
And again, if an investigation is not yet completed, it may be premature to bring it to the commission until an investigation is done. I just don't know what the status is of that. So if the request is for staff to put it on a future agenda and to look into compliance as to the conditions imposed on the property pursuant to the CUP and to bring it forward again with proper notice, with due process
Exactly.
and all of
Yeah.
that,
Mm-hmm.
then that could be a future item that comes forward in the future with the timing considerations in mind, because if you want it at the very next meeting, it might or might not come.
Yeah, it won't meet the requirements for the next meeting. Yeah.
Actually, what the real concern is why we're not aware of it, of how many actually there are. I mean, there's a lack of communication. There should be a report given to the city every month at the end of the month with in regards to what has happened, what's transpired with certain businesses, what have been the disruptions or crimes being committed, and none of that information is being sent to that we can even look to revoke any conditional use permits or to fine any businesses. There's, we're blind.
I just want to keep everybody on track. This is the communications and commissioner report. So I just wanted to keep it on track rather than going into discussion. If you would like that to be an item that is added to an agenda for the future to get reports, that again is something you can request. I just don't want it to veer into Brown Act where we don't have it on the agenda, and I don't want it to veer into a discussion. So if the request is from Commissioner Gutierrez to place on a future agenda,
I think she was,
report back on the conditional use compliance as to 5-star, then that's specific enough that they can act on it. And then
I think she was just making a comment. She wasn't.
No, I wasn't. I was.
right, and if Commissioner Becerra wants to have another request the staff to present problematic businesses that are high priority or whatever, however you want to phrase it, you can state that as your communication and request to staff. So I would say that those are two separate items and two separate requests.
So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion because it says may vote to agendize the matter for a future meeting. So I'm going to make a motion to put 5-star in as an agenda item for this and I'm asking city staff to start the legal process in notification and due process that's required in this process. I'm requesting for the request for review of conditions of approval and for possible revocation of the CUP, and also request the calls of service for that location. And I guess to be more specific, I'll say the calls of service for the last year for that location.
I would go longer.
Long, okay. We'll expand it to the last 5 years. And that's my motion. And again, I make this motion because it's, I believe, a matter that this commission has responsibility on. But most importantly, we're putting a burden on the men and women of our police department, and we need to make sure our police officers have the resources they need to serve the whole community. And if this is truly happening, now we'll have the ability to find out what's really going on at this location. So that's my motion.
Do we need a second?
Yes, you need a second.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and second. Joanne, will you do the roll call?
Commissioner Becerra?
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis?
Present.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Heng?
I'm gonna no, due to the fact that I want to wait until after July 2nd. Maybe bring this back.
Commissioner, Vice Chair Williams?
No.
So the motion has failed.
I'd like to make a motion for to agendize the find out what the protocol is for staff as their communication with law enforcement to see if there is something in place which would give us the proper notification as to what is going on with the businesses or negligent business owners.
May I clarify the motion? Is your motion to ask staff to come back with a report on how the monitoring and enforcement occurs within city departments?
Yes, a detailed explanation of how it is being handled, not just, waiting for a phone call. We should be getting reports from law enforcement. It should be actually public knowledge.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and second. Joanne, will you do the roll call?
Commissioner Becerra?
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis?
Aye.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hang? Chair Williams?
No.
So I'd like to make another motion. And my motion is,
One moment, please. May we have the results of the vote?
One against. 4 in favor and 1 against.
okay. So I would like to make another motion. And before I make that motion, I would like to comment to say specifically April 2nd is a discussion about pathway homes and housing 80, I believe it has 80 rooms, if I'm not mistaken, 80 homeless people in the city of West Covina. So it's the agenda item on July 2nd. It's July 2nd, the council meeting, right? Yeah, so July 2nd is about pathway homes, not about if 5-Star Inn is having drug use or violating the law or violating their conditional use permit and so forth. So it has nothing to do with July 2nd. Earlier this meeting, you had a public speaker to distract this commission on the facts. And the facts is on July 2nd, it's about pathway homes. Has nothing to do with reviewing what crimes have been occurring on this location. And so I'll make a other motion, and I'll take out the part that says revocation, and I'm going to ask that the commission please support me on this, which is a request for review of conditions of approval for 5-Star Inn, and to get a copy, and also to be informed about calls for service at this location. So what I'm requesting is to for this commission to be given a copy of the conditions of approval and for us to be given a copy of calls for service. And so I'm not adding the language for revocation on this matter. It's more broader now to see if anything was to develop between now and then it can always be amended and so forth. But this is just out of due diligence, just to get a copy of solely to get a copy of review of conditions of approval for this location and a copy of calls for service at this location. And the city staff could inform the property owner that if they want to come speak on the matter, they could. But at least the commission will now have a copy of those conditions of approval and will now have a copy of the calls for service. And so that's my motion.
It's my understanding it's not been approved yet, right? Is that correct?
What has not been approved? Are you referring?
Talking about the pathway home? Right. Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yeah, so it's actually 90 rooms, and it's Pathway Homes according to our city manager Paulina Morales.
Excuse me, the deputy.
Okay, so I'm gonna. Okay, go ahead.
I think the as to the clarification of what is being asked is okay, but we're veering into discussion on an item without it being on the agenda. We're getting really close to a Brown Act violation, so I wanted to make sure that I can warn you of that before it goes.
So I'm going to explain my motion because she's asking me about my motion.
Yes,
so,
thank you.
Pathway. So so according to my knowledge, there's been no agreement, no execution of an agreement because we had a member of Measure H at the last council meeting on June 18, a member of Measure H appeared saying no contract has been signed for that location yet for Pathway Homes. And again, our city manager, Paulina Morales, also confirmed, according to her knowledge, that there was no contract executed at that time and that there was no intention of having a contract signed anytime soon.
Point of order.
Point of order.
I think we're
Veering into, yes.
dangerously
Yeah, okay.
close to a Brown Act violation, and
Make your motion and
I am very uncomfortable with this. I think if you're going to make your request, make your request.
So that's my
I know it goes to
motion.
the city council, correct? I don't think that it's coming to us, but I think it should go to the residents of West Covina on a vote for something that's pretty. It could be a pretty complicated situation after. I've been hearing different opinions, and mostly from residents, and there's a very, very high concern right now about that.
Yeah, so I'll repeat my motion. My motion is to request solely to give Five Star Inn proper notification that the commission will be reviewing their conditions of approval, and also solely reviewing calls for service for the location at this time. So no other, I'm not asking for anything else about revocation or anything like that. I'm just saying, let's do our due diligence and let's find out what's happening at this location, because the public has voiced their concerns. And so that's my motion.
I'd just like to introduce a counter request, and potentially we can this can be a motion as well. I think that I think I'd like to see a request for a resolution from this commission that comes back at the next meeting, which expresses a desire from this commission for direction from City Council as to whether or not the City Council wants us to take up any consideration of potential revocation and or modification of conditional use permits, if any, pertaining to Five Star Inn, and if so, provide us additional direction therein, such that we are not necessarily infringing upon their police power authority. And that would be my request and my motion.
I'd like to second that particular motion.
Do you have a second on the alternate motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
I'm not sure. Can I ask a question exactly what your motion was?
Certainly. So I'm requesting that that staff bring back a resolution that expresses the collective will of this body to have direction from City Council as to whether or not we should look into potential revocation and or modification of the conditional use permit or permits, if any, for Five Star Inn, such that we are not overstepping our authority and inadvertently impinging upon the City Council's decision one way or the other to exercise their police power, which they have and we do not.
Well, we do over other businesses. Why wouldn't this one apply as well?
Getting into discussion which we cannot do.
Well, you're referring to a matter that
I
the
think
City Council did act on.
Point of order.
I'm speaking, so
I think
can I speak?
we need to listen to our deputy city attorney.
I'm doing this as a city attorney, but okay, go ahead.
Point of order. We do have an alternate motion. We have a second, and it should go to vote if there is, and we cannot have discussion on this because it is not on the agenda. So if you do want to discuss it, it does need to be agendized for a future agenda so that it can be properly fleshed out, discussed, and you can fully discuss it at that next meeting.
So I would like to make a counter motion, and I'll just say before I make that counter motion, for us to tell the City Council What we're asking is, you can't do your job, so send it back to the Planning Commission. That makes no sense at all, because they're supposed to be their own leadership and they make their own decisions. They're not going to send it back to us. Why would they do that? They have the power to do the same decision we're asking to be done today. So I'll make a counter motion, and that counter is to request to request specifically a copy of the review to request specifically a copy of the 5-star Inn conditions of approval, and to also be provided for this commission to be provided a presentation on calls of service for this 5-star location inn.
And this alternate motion you have just proposed, is that a repetition of your original motion, or is this an actual change that you would like, that it's a presentation on the calls for service rather than the actual reports? Because your original motion and this one is very similar. I just want to make sure we have the wording correctly.
Yeah, so it's different a little bit.
I'm not sure if this is already a moot point because they're already thinking in the transition. So they're going to brush it under the rug and say, well, we're changing it anyways.
Yeah, so
Is there a second on that last motion?
So to clarify, I'm requesting that this commission be provided a copy of the conditions of approval and a presentation on calls of service for this location.
Thank you for clarifying the motion.
Do we have a second?
The information would be beneficial to have. Not sure that it would make a difference, but I'll second.
It's been properly moved and second.
I'll go ahead and do the roll call. Commissioner Becerra?
Here. Aye.
Commissioner Lewis?
No.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hang?
Which motion are we voting on? Because there are two motions that both got seconds.
It is the most recent one, which is Commissioner Gutierrez's.
So which was to request solely a copy of just a copy of the conditions of approval, and then for staff just to present to us any calls for service for this
I
location.
want to know what's going on over there.
Yeah.
No.
I'm sorry. Your vote was no?
Yes.
Okay. Chair Williams?
No.
Okay, motion failed.
Next vote will be the alternate motion provided by Commissioner Lewis.
Commissioner Becerra?
No.
Commissioner Lewis?
Aye.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
What's the motion? Oh, to allow the city council to bring it back to us? No, because it's our job. They're not going to send it back to us. That's not being a leader if they were to do that.
Vice Chair Heng?
So the motion was to ask City Council.
The motion was for City Council to bring a resolution to the Planning Commission recommending that the CUP for the 5-star be reviewed. Is that?
I think that's the opposite of what I was requesting. So specifically, I was requesting that we bring back an agenda item to consider a resolution of this body to come up with a majority resolution that would request that City Council either take the oar themselves or send back what they want us to look into and or investigate, et cetera, such that we are not inadvertently stepping on any of their toes from a law enforcement aspect of this.
I understand what you're saying. I just only think that it's only because of this business, because of the future of it with the county.
Point of order.
Right?
We
I'm sorry.
can't.
We are in the middle of a vote, so.
So point of order. Since people didn't know what they were voting on, I'm asking that the motion be repeated and restarted. Because Commissioner Lewis just re-explained what his motion was, and city staff did not reaffirm what they were writing down either. So,
Okay, it would be to agendize on the Planning Commission agenda a resolution for the City Council to provide guidance to the Planning Commission pertaining to 5-star, the 5-star conditional use permit. Whether the City Council would like the Planning Commission to revoke the conditional use permit or modify it in some way.
so point of order. My question. Sorry. So are we going to restart that motion since people didn't know what they were voting on?
Well, I'll go ahead and do the roll call again.
I'm still not quite sure on, so we're asking, instead of it coming to us, we're going to throw it to City Council to throw it back to us.
It will still go to the Planning Commission for discussion. In the Planning Commission discussion, that you would be presented with a draft resolution that you will be considering and voting on, and that draft resolution would be to ask the City Council if the City Council would like the Planning Commission to consider the review of the conditional use permit for potential revocation or modification. So it would be a Planning Commission agenda item.
So we wouldn't be able to request that ourselves. We have to ask City Council to give it to us. Is that correct?
That's what this particular motion pertains to.
Is that how it went with Rebel Yell? They gave it to us?
No, with that particular item is not in tonight's agenda. However, for that particular case, it was a request by the police department. In this particular instance, we have not received any of that request. This motion is directly coming from the Planning Commission at this time.
So is that the point of order, to request it from the City Council to give to us?
That is the motion that Commissioner Lewis has just.
Is that the normal point of order, how it happens, or somebody has to request it, correct?
Yes. So the item can be brought to the Planning Commission many different ways. In this motion that the Planning Commission is considering is the motion that Commissioner Lewis had just made.
Is there?
And then I have a legal question. At the last council meeting on June 18, Mayor Pro Tem Tony Wu requested the closure of that location. If I'm not mistaken, can we clarify on what that meant?
I was not in attendance at that time, but I can look into it.
Well, we're voting on something and we don't know about it. Okay.
So again, what are the other avenues of having it directed to the Planning Commission?
It would be Planning Commission's request from the police department or staff based on either calls for service like what Rebel Yell or complaints from the public.
I'm sorry.
So we haven't had any of those?
We have not received any request. Tonight is the first time that a motion was made pertaining to this particular.
So our only avenue right now is to request it from City Council so we can bring it to the Commission?
Actually, you know what? I like to re-vote what I did earlier. If we can make a change
On
to my vote.
Is it the pending motion? Because past motions are done. This pending motion was paused mid-vote.
Well, I'll make a motion to bring back my motion.
All right.
We're in the middle of a vote, so if we can get through the vote first, we can clarify the motion. The motion, as I understand it, is by Commissioner Lewis, and it is to request clarification or guidance from City Council to get instruction as to whether they want the Planning Commission to review the conditions of approval for compliance, modification, or revocation, and to confirm that the City Council is asking for this body to do that, and it's just the resolution to be placed on a future agenda. And so far, we have a vote midway, so I don't want to get into discussions if at all
I have a
possible.
point of order question. We just heard from Joanna, we're going to restart that vote. So,
Correct. We would pick up from where we are.
Yes, which was the first vote for Commissioner, or is for with Commissioner Becerra.
Well, actually, you never finished answering
Yes,
my
she was-
question because I got interrupted, or you got interrupted. So I don't even, can recall what it was. But I did ask you something. So that would be the only way, but it would come back to the commission. That's what you were saying, correct?
For this motion, yes.
Okay.
That's not the only way.
No, for this motion, the item will go to the commission at an agendized. But like what I said earlier, there are many different ways a conditional use permit can be reviewed by the Planning Commission and reconsidered. But the motion is to bring agendize this item to a Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, so how do I, wait, one question. How do I, if I want to change my vote from the last one, how do I go about doing that?
For the last motion that has been voted and resolved,
Yes.
is done. Unless there is a motion to reconsider, and
I'm
that is
gonna-
a completely
yeah.
separate.
So I'm going to be making a motion to reconsider, but since there's an active vote going on the floor, go ahead and proceed. But then I will be making a motion to reconsider after that one.
Well, I think I would like to hold my vote to find out what the motion to reconsider is.
So I would like to make a motion to reconsider. I'd like to make a
Just
motion.
continue the vote.
Just a moment. We don't have a result, so there's nothing to reconsider
Okay.
consider until the vote is completed.
Okay.
So just need to proceed with the vote to be able to have a result.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start over. Commissioner Becerra?
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis?
Aye.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
No.
Vice Chair Hang?
No.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to reconsider and also to void out I would like to make a motion to void out the current matter that was just voted on, and then make a motion to review the conditions of approval for 5-Star Inn and for staff to present calls for service and request for the review of conditions of approval and possible revocation of the CUP based upon staff's presentation of calls for service.
A motion for reconsideration may only be brought by someone who voted in favor of the motion that passed, and you voted against it. So you are not able to make a motion to reconsider at this.
That was my motion. What are you talking about?
The last motion we voted, that the body voted on, was Commissioner Lewis's motion.
I will motion that for him.
Point of order, Madam Chair. I think we're getting sort of dangerously close to a Brown Act violation. And
Correct.
the reason that we are getting dangerously close to a Brown Act violation is because each of these individual requests stand on their own merits. When you start getting into a discussion about reconsidering a request to agendize an item, you are in effect agendizing that item without notice to the public. And that is my concern. If everyone wants to put on their own request and we all vote on it, fine, wonderful. However, when you start getting into motion for reconsideration on requests to agendizing items, you are in effect having a discussion about the underlying substance and why something should be revoked or not revoked. And I think that that's very problematic, and I think it's sort of dangerously close to a Brown Act violation. And if it continues, I'm going to walk.
Okay. Well, I don't think there's no violation of the law occurring. Point of order, there's no violation of the law occurring because it specifically says the commission may vote to agendize the matter for a future meeting. So we have...
Yes, but not unagendized matters that it has already voted to agendize.
So we have a motion there. I guess I'll second it.
Okay, Commissioner Becerra,
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis,
No.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hang,
Aye.
Chair Williams,
No.
3-2. Motion passes.
Now you may reconsider whether you want this on the next agenda or a future agenda. It is not a discussion of the item. It's just to simply just whether this should go on an agenda.
So then after I could do my motion? Assistant City Attorney?
Correct. You could make your motion at this time.
I'm going to motion to adjourn.
And I want to make a motion to request to strike out, to void out the last vote that occurred on the matter that was brought by Commissioner Lewis, and to request the review of conditions of approval request for the review of conditions of approval for 5 Star Inn for possible revocation of the CUP and based upon staff's
Point of order. I think it's probably time that we go ahead, motion to adjourn.
Wow.
Second.
So is she making a new motion?
Currently, we had one motion that didn't have a second, one motion that was not complete, and one motion to adjourn, which has a second.
Well, I was not able to complete my speaking. I didn't finish speaking. And
Motion to adjourn is a non-debatable item, must go to a vote.
Okay, let's go to a
To the
vote.
Robert's Rules of Order, not a debatable item. Must go
Okay,
to-
I know you're getting mad, Nick. So let's go for a vote so we could do our job and get to this.
Commissioner Becerra,
I'm going to hit pause for a second. Okay, according to the Robert's Rules of Order, there are certain motions that are immediate and are not debatable or amendable, and if presented, has to be voted on right away, and that is one of motion to adjourn. So we do have a motion to adjourn
Okay.
by Commissioner Williams, seconded by Commissioner Lewis, and that is not a debatable.
And just for clarification, if the commission was to vote no, then the meeting was able to continue to address the matter that I brought, right?
Correct. This is a
Okay.
motion to adjourn,
Right.
and we go to a vote immediately.
Okay, great.
okay, Commissioner Becerra,
No.
Commissioner Lewis,
Aye.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
No.
Commissioner Hang, Vice Chair Hang, Chair Williams.
Aye.
So motion passed.
Okay.
Motion failed, sorry. 3-2.
So I'll make a motion to request the review of conditions of approval for 5 Star Inn for the possible revocation of the CUP after based upon staff's presentation of calls for service for the location. And is there a second?
Was that to agendize it, or was that
Agendaize it.
Okay. second?
Okay, I'll go ahead and do the roll call vote. Commissioner Becerra,
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis,
No.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hang,
Aye.
Chair Williams.
No.
Motion passes 3-2.
I'd like to make a motion to agendize an item pertaining to the location at I guess, 5 Star Inn. I'd like to agendize a resolution to be considered to the City Council requesting specific guidance pertaining to whether or not the City Council wishes us to take any action on 5 Star Inn at all.
I second that motion.
Point of order, isn't that your original motion earlier? That was
not.
That was brought back and voided?
I didn't.
This particular motion is different from the original motion. The original motion was specifically for potential revocation or reconsideration of the conditional use permit, and this motion is to take any action at all. So, just a point of clarification.
So point of order, in order for that to happen, there's already an item that was approved by this commission, so he'll have to request reconsideration, and he didn't vote on it.
So the motion that had happened that passed was to present the Planning Commission with items including the calls for service in the copy of the original conditional use permit. This particular item is for a draft resolution for the Planning Commission to consider.
To do what? Take no action?
No, to present to the request an item to the City Council, whether the City Council would like the Planning Commission to consider reviewing this particular conditional use permit or the 5 Star motel location at all. So
We have my item addresses a action plan. So you have to, you'll be leaving out that item that's already voted on, right, Assistant City Attorney? If I requested action to be taken, then now you're saying you don't want that to happen because you're asking the City Council what? When you're asking the City Council if we should take action, well, we already voted on to take action. So as a point of order, he has to call back. He'll have to request reconsideration of my motion to take action.
I think the requests or the motion were two separate items, and the item that was immediately previously voted on was to consider or review the conditions of approval and compliance of that, and receive the reports and review the calls for service at that location, and for revocation of that CUP. Now, the motion here is a very different one that asks for confirmation from City Council, asking for clarification and requesting guidance that they do want the Planning Commission to consider this item at all, regardless of what the action is.
Wow. I mean, as a point of order, legal clarification on the Planning Commission made a decision because were appointed by members of the City Council. And so now you're saying the City Council is going to tell the Planning Commission how to vote or take up an action? That sounds a violation of the Brown Act.
I think Commissioner Lewis is asking for clarification, and from what I heard from you earlier is that City Council made some comments or statements as to Five Star at a prior meeting, and I don't know that that was an actual request or directive. And I think please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm understanding this to be a clarification of that instruction from council to act on it versus a comment that was made. And I'm not sure if that's the grounds for this motion, but I think they are two different items. And again, given the notice requirements and such, the timing may be different. I do think they are two different motions.
So how does that affect my current motion? How does that affect the approve item that was just approved?
Both items can be in the agenda if this motion passes.
And it may not be on the same agenda date because of the constitutional due process notifications that need to be made. So those are the two different distinct issues, and they are two separate items that may appear at different times because of the due process requirements under the Constitution.
Yeah, and I'll just make a comment that the City Council made it clear last time at their meeting on June 18 what they want to do, and for us to go back, it will be a waste of taxpayer money. But that's my comment.
Okay, we do have a motion on hand, so I'll go ahead and take. Was there a second?
Yeah.
Williams. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start the motion. Taking the roll call vote. Commissioner Becerra.
No.
Commissioner Lewis.
Aye.
Commissioner Hang.
No.
Vice Chair Hang. Sorry. Commissioner Gutierrez.
No.
Chair Williams.
Aye.
Motion failed.
Okay, I'm going to make another request.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So I'd like to make
That motion.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay, Commissioner Becerra.
For the motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis.
no.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hang.
No.
Chair Williams.
No.
Motion failed.
Can we get some coffee?
We'll take a recess now. 5 minutes.
So we go to Porto's. Is it still open?
Okay. Ready to call our meeting back to order?
Right. Unless there's a motion for reconsideration, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to direct staff to prepare a resolution for the next meeting, such that we request City Council direction as to whether or not we should investigate the potential modification and or revocation of the conditional use permit for Five Star Inn, and specifically as to whether or not we need to look into the creation of additional ordinances from a planning standpoint to address potential issues pertaining to sites such as the Five Star Inn.
I would like to make a second to that motion.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start the roll call vote.
Can you clarify it so I understand it?
Clerk?
It would be to bring a resolution to the Planning Commission for the city council to provide guidance on whether the city council desires the planning commission to investigate investigate the situation at that's occurring at 5-star, and also to potentially provide direction on a possible ordinance that would address similar situations. Is that the correct?
It's close.
Okay.
Would you like to clarify further so that everyone is clear on what the vote is for?
Sure. So it's to bring back a resolution that we can all work on in crafting to the City Council, requesting direction as to whether or not we should be the body that investigates the potential revocation and or modification of the conditional use permit at 5-Star Inn, and as to whether or not City Council would like us to investigate and potentially look to study and implement possible ordinances to address the situation on that site in the future.
Is that different? Point of order. Is that different from your original motion, or is this a?
No,
Sounds the same.
same motion.
It's the same motion from before.
It's the same motion that I just made. I was just repeating it for clarification.
It's a different motion from the previous motions that were voted on and were not, and did not pass. So this is a different motion from those.
So again, we're voting on something that we just had something passed to take action. Now we're saying don't take action again. But okay. So it's like the same thing.
There's a motion and a second. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote. Commissioner Becerra?
No.
Commissioner Lewis?
Aye.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Because it's the same motion since it's the same thing that we just voted on. Again, it's our responsibility as the Planning Commission to take action. Again, Mayor Pro Tem Tony Wu.
Point of order.
Riado.
Point of order.
Getting into discussion.
I am.
Point of order.
I'm making a comment regarding what I'm
Point of
about to vote
order.
on.
Point of order.
Hey, what's your point of order?
We have a motion on the floor, and the clerk is getting ready to now take the vote.
Yeah, it's my vote. It's my turn.
Yes. Commissioner?
So the majority of the City Council, 4 members, have already voiced their concerns. And again, since this is a copy of what was just failed, I'm going to have to say no.
Vice Chair Hang?
No.
Chair Williams?
Aye.
So motion failed.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Unless there's no other motions, but okay, go ahead. I take that back.
I'm going to make an additional motion. So
Is there a second to
What-
the motion?
Okay, well, since we're going to continue on making motions, then I'm going to have to be forced to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, I'll go ahead and take roll call. There is a second. Commissioner Becerra? Commissioner Becerra?
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis?
no.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Aye.
Commissioner Hang? Commissioner Williams?
No.
Motion passes. The meeting is adjourned.